Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining up this week. I'm glad to see you, although I'm not able to see you. But I hope you can see me clearly. And and by the way, just wanted to recommend that there's a tool in the toolbar. There's a Q&A lever that you can touch to send in your questions, which we try to get to after the hour is up at 2 o'clock. So I think all of you were here last week, and maybe you've done some of the exercises I've given you, and have thought about the circumstances, the situation about your life, and some of the ideas that I brought to bear about the genesis of illness and this particular ailment that we're focusing on, and the basis of this webinar, which is called The Meaning of Cancer. So in doing that, I wanted to first remind you about this book, which is a wealth of information and a tremendous amount of knowledge for you about approaching this condition. It is divided into 12 phases. It's a 12-phase program, and so you can take it and use it, and it'll take you through an entire year of processing this condition for yourself. It's incredible depth, and there's nothing like it. And I think this is well worth the purchasing for yourself. It's a very important book. And I think it covers the condition in many, many different ways. And so it's a great reference for all of you. Thanks. I wanted to hold up this book to you. And this book, the ICD-10 book. This is the diagnostic book, the International Classification of Diseases, 10th revision. I wanted to show you the thickness of this book, and this is what the insurance company has put out in terms of getting repaid for getting a reimbursement for your billing. And I'd like to ask you a question. In looking at that book and it's showing it to you, how many listings are in that book, do you think, altogether, of the names of diseases? And how many do you think the term neoplasm, which is the technical term for cancer, how many of those, how much is listed there, a number of terms? Well, I guess you all had a guess right away. You maybe have jotted it down. If you want to jot it down, because you can send it at the end to let us know what you thought and how many terms for neoplasm. The answer is 68,000 plus names of diseases. Isn't that remarkable? And over 3,000 for the names of cancer. And this brings us to a seminal point about how you're approaching this condition and how to take charge of this circumstance that's taking place in your life, which, as I had mentioned last week, is the hologram for all chronic ailments. So everything we're talking about applies not only to this condition, but to anything else that should beset you. And we even go further, because it goes beyond the physical into the emotional and the mental and the social and so on. And so first, I wanted to focus on the term that we thought that is the basis for the webinar, which is called the meaning of cancer, and what the term meaning means, and what it's meant to do, and what makes it meaningful. And so the term meaning has a number of nuances to it. One is that it's meant to convey and give information, which we're doing here in the webinar. I call this true information. It comes out of the long years of my work in this field, and how much my clinical work has borne fruit with this condition and many other ailments that have come my way, be they physical, emotional, social, mental, and so on. And then it also has to do with inner significance. That's another meaning for meaning. So we look at the inner significance. So we're conveying meaning, we're conveying something that's informative, and then we're looking and turning our attention inward to find out what it all is, what it's all signifying for us. And I think I can answer this question. Over the long time I've been investigating all of this, day in and day out, for 43 years, and have explored deeply the whole matter of the question of life and death and sickness and health, and all of the ramifications that there's more. I know there's more because I've learned more as I've gone on over the years, and there's no end to what is coming my way about understanding the matter that I'm presenting to you. But there are a lot of ramifications of this, and you see, I held up this book purposely because, from my point of view, you see, it's an absurdity to consider that there are 68,000 plus names for something that you're labeled with. Can you imagine? And how it feels to walk into a clinical situation in which you're called something, because the fact of the matter is that what you're called, you become. And what you're named, you will attach to and become that which you're named. And if you're named cancer, then you become it. It's almost an automatic function. And the question is what you do when that name is uttered at you. And then the disinformation comes, which you don't need at all. We're talking about what's imparted to you, which is considered to be information, which is really disinformation, which has some of the terms used as, you have stage 4 this, stage 3 this, and so on. So they consider that giving you their qualifications about this condition is providing you with something that is meaningful and has value for you. It doesn't. All it does primarily is make you fill you with more anxiety and more dread about your situation, and has no real helpful process because it's not backed up with essentially what can I do about that? How can I get rid of that? And then, of course, you do ask that, and then the answer comes in a very simple way about the armamentarium that's launched at you, which is very simple. There are only 3 possibilities about interventional treatment that the medical model can offer you, which is operation, surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation, or any combination of those 3 primarily. So even going for a second opinion is not going to further your understanding and knowing and knowledge about this circumstance that you find yourself in. I want to further your knowledge and your understanding, because what you know for yourself is going to help you immensely take charge of the situation, because it really is going to be a responsibility of yours. And I think you've come to this webinar because you wanted to find ways in which you can be part of the process, not just be a passive recipient of something that's handed to you from the outside, and you're told not to ask many questions or any questions at all, and not to explore with many questions that you may have that you need to have answered, which we'll get to in a later webinar, in this grouping, which will talk about the relationship between you and the clinician, whoever you see, if you choose to go that way. So I wanted to use that book as a way of getting into the meat of our get-together today. And so I would tell you that the all of those names that are in that book can be condensed to one term. Excuse me. Only one term is necessary, and that term we call decay. The chronic ailments are a sign of decay in our physical condition. So decay means that that the body's organs are getting older, they're wearing out, they're getting aged, as it's called, and they're losing their resiliency, and there's a breakdown. And this breakdown then is defined at an endpoint of this, how this breakdown occurs, by the medical model which is only at the end point. So it's only telling you what they're discovering about the decay, and they seek to name that decay by these various names to give themselves authority over you, or to give the sense that they know more about something, more about life and death than you do, more about what's bothering you than you do, and that they have some secrets to share in some way, something to impart that will lend itself to your coming together and bringing back the health to your body, the wholeness, as we mentioned last time, some dimension of cure, etc. So let's go into the decaying process, because that's going to be part of what to do about using the materials that you're finding from this webinar, and for further investigation of this direction and the ways of using your mental life as a healing model for yourself, because your mental life comes with you at your birth. It's your own inner process that's been given to you to use as a way to find yourself back into the order and balance that has deserted us, or that we have allowed to take place, and that has escaped from our circumstance in life. How does this decay happen? What is going on? And what is the mechanism, if you will, for the decay to take place? That's what we need to know, because that's where you're going to be able to sink your teeth into the situation, to be able to take yourself into a different way of looking at this condition, and searching into yourself to find out how to bring yourself back into balance. When I mentioned that the body has gone into this aged and decaying mode, and this wearing out and loss of resiliency, is a function of us going out of balance. We've gone to excess. We've gone too far in one way or another in our lives, what I call errors of living. So the mechanism for how this takes place starts from really a mental disposition that we curry in ourselves. And what happens is that we have, as one of the mechanisms, a major one for you to consider, because everything I teach you is something for you to take away with yourself and use. And I think, I hope that over the week you've used, and some of the things I've taught, that you try to practice this for yourself and take it on to see if it's true. You must understand that nothing that we're talking about here today, nothing I'm conveying here, last time, in the next 2 weeks, is true until you experiment with yourself to find out if it's true. You're going to be your own experimental animal, if you will, from yourself to yourself, not an experimental animal necessarily from someone outside experimenting on you with medications that have been suddenly developed by drug companies, which they are using to experiment on you in a desperate effort to turn your condition around that you're allowing yourself to happen. So, where does it begin? So the beginning is at the point in which we are looking forward to being healthy. And suddenly something is told to us which tells us that we're not healthy. There is an expectation along the way through our lives that we are going to be continuously strong and resilient and able to function in a productive way, and it's going to be such and such a way of life. And suddenly some message comes to us that this isn't the case, that something has gone awry, something is going amiss. So what do we do? And what we do is we feel a sudden experience of feeling disappointed and hurt. We expected that we would be this ebullient, exuberant self constantly, and be in a state of balance for ourselves, and living calmly and peacefully, hopefully humorously, and so on. But when the message comes that something is not in order, we then become serious, and we have a feeling of disappointment and hurt. Then What comes with that is a sense of blame. We blame either ourselves or something or someone else for this state of affairs. Pay attention now. Something comes that has offset our expectations about ourselves, our self-image, our ideal that we've held dear for ourselves. Something has come to interfere with it. Something has happened at some point in our lives. We feel disappointed. We feel hurt. We're experiencing some sort of symptomatology. We may feel pain or some other kind of imbalance, which we'll come to learn as a cleansing response. It's not pathology, but we may feel different abdominal symptoms. We may feel nausea. We may vomit. We are feeling sweating. We get insomnia. And so we're going through a lot of different, the joints begin to hurt and so on. We find ourselves not able to walk as easily. We lose mobility in our joints. We lose mobility in our limbs and so on. And here we are, disappointed, hurt, blame ourselves or something else for the circumstance, for the situation we find ourselves in. And what comes with that are distressing emotional states. Anxiety, anger, fear, worry. I'm just going to give you a few of the major ones. Regret, shame, guilt, depression, and panic. And these are, and we can go on and on. We could fill up the whole room with these different distressing emotional states. But what happens is that within 1 to 72 hours, we will feel a physical symptom, again, of some sort, or an intensity of that symptom, or an addictive craving, some addictive craving that we use to go to mollify our feelings, to mollify the disturbing feelings. Fine. So now you've done something right away to alleviate. And this alleviation has made you feel better for the time being. And you think you got a grip on the situation. You wake up in the next day and you don't feel as you wanted to feel. And you're feeling uneasy because you're not feeling in the pink. It hasn't come to the way you were. And now you're feeling a different kind of symptom that comes, and you expect it to feel better, and you don't. And as you don't, you feel disappointed, you feel hurt, you blame, and then you feel a distressing feeling or feelings, and then within 1 to 72 hours, there's a physical symptom again, and or an addictive craving to mollify the feelings. And of course, the addictive craving and then creates an imbalance in us, as addictive cravings do, be they drugs or alcohol or food or any kind of anything that we do to make us feel temporarily what we hopefully will be permanently better, but it doesn't work. We feel uneasy, and what happens is that the body is now called into action, and we have to clear out and clean out the disturbance. There's a natural movement in our physical life, in our organismic life, to come to balance. And we seek to create the balance again. We're looking for balance. And consequently, we go through what I call a cleansing response. The body is getting rid of the poisons, the toxicities that are coming, that are being built up in the system. And with that, and what is going on is that we feel that we are having to rid ourselves of these toxic buildup, you see, because when you're not feeling well, you treat it as a threat to yourself. And when you treat it as a threat, your body goes into a natural state of what we call fight or flight. So it's wanting to move away from, to flee from the disturbance that we're feeling, or in some way to fight it. And what's available to us right away is not so apparent about how we can flee or how we can fight. It's not like there would be an external threat like a fire in which you are then forced to flee or to fight it one way or another. So when threats come, we're physiologically geared to do one thing or the other. And since there is no external threat, really, something coming from within ourselves, there is no way really to exert our will outwardly to get rid of all of these elements, all of these chemicals and hormones that are built up into the system to take care of fighting the disturbance and bringing ourselves back into balance. We don't have the options as we do when some external threat comes. So we are then faced with having a buildup of all of these chemicals and hormones that are there to help us survive the situation. And then they break down because there's no way to get rid of them. And what was helpful to us at once becomes, harmful to us. And this breakdown of these chemical elements becomes what we call waste products or poisons in the system. Well, once a poison is experienced in the system then wants to take care of getting rid of it. Now it's mobilized, and all of the different organ systems of the body come into play to cleanse ourselves of these toxic elements. So we're going through a cleansing response. We are, as I mentioned before, we feel nauseated, we vomit, we may defecate, we may urinate, we are sweating, and we're feeling pain because the circulatory system is carrying these toxins out of our system through the pores of the body and so on. Through the respiration, we're getting rid of it, and it touches the nervous system and it creates a pain. And this is a pain having to do with cleansing ourselves and getting rid of what's not to be there in the body. Well, if we continue this syndrome and continue this operation of mechanism of feeling disappointed and hurt because we're not feeling well, and we're disappointed and we're hurt, and then we begin to blame, and then we go through the distressing emotions, and then the physical symptom and or addictive craving comes within 1 to 72 hours. Eventually, these organ systems will get tired. They will age. They will begin to break down. They become weary, and that essentially is a mechanism for why we get into this chronic condition where we begin to wear away, because we're using up our life energy. We're using it to try to come back into balance, and we're not able to make our way to this resilient stage once again, because we're going through the same disturbance over and over again, which is when the situation comes at us and it's not pleasant and it's painful for us, we will then go into this fight or flight response and eventually end up wearing the body out, and the decaying process begins to set in, and that's how we become older and how we get old. And then what happens is that's where the clinicians come in, and they look at that endpoint, and they call it the 68,000 names that appear in that book. They have no idea what I'm talking about. They do not know how this works. They did not know how it started with a mental response and a fight or flight response to a condition that asserted itself, that we are facing this adversity that's come into our lives, and what we've done about it. And what we've done about it is a habitual, familiar way of behaving in a situation, which is really playing into the hands of an illness process to take place. I'd like to move from there as a way of understanding, because what you can do, by the way, is, you can start with the situation that you're looking at now in yourself. And you can ask yourself, what's the emotional state that I'm experiencing right now? Who or what am I blaming? What am I feeling hurt and disappointed by? What's been my expectation? And of course, the expectation, when it goes unmet, becomes a lever for the feeling of disappointment and hurt and blame. And we're going back into the system again to the final point of a physical symptom and an addictive craving. We're working backwards and coming back to the expectation point. And the expectation point then has something for us to consider. How we deal with these expectations about ourselves. And if you look at the way that you are handling it in a grammatical way, the way your thought process is looking at it, you are saying to yourself, I thought I would feel better. I thought I would be over this. I thought I would. And you're using the term would, should, could, will, going to. You're using all of these terms, which are really posting you into the future, into a realm that doesn't exist. And as I mentioned last time, it is paramount for healing to take place that we get our head and heart around understanding that the future doesn't exist for us. It only is a probability or a possibility at best, and it's not a thing, it's not a fact. It's something that you have to detach yourself from, to not be concerned about what the future holds, what the future will be, should be, going to be, ought to be, must be, have to be, and so on. So you want to step away. You want to detach and look only at what is in front of you without having to go further, without having to go forward, without having to project into where it would end up, or what's going to take place, or what it should be, or what I'm supposed to happen to me, and how I'm supposed to be, and how I'm supposed to feel. Stop doing it. You stay where you are right here now. And I wanted to read this piece to you that I thought would be of interest. It came from a TED Talk by a healthcare practitioner named Kelly McGonigal. And so bear with me. And I think this will be quite apt for all of us, because it's going to be a takeoff point for some further conversation about this. And then we're going to go into how we can, practically speaking, take care of all of this that I'm mentioning to you, I think, in a very simple way. This is called How to Make Stress Your Friend. So we're talking about the stressors. We're talking about anything that comes to us as a stressor. As I mentioned last time, I believe that when you got up in the morning to the time that you arrived here to be at the webinar, there was a stressor, at least one. That stressor may take itself out in some sense of loss, some shock, something that you meant to do that didn't take place, that you were late for a meeting, that you were trying to get somewhere but the train didn't come on time, that the train got stuck. All kinds of things take place, that you were on your way out the door and the phone rang and you picked it up and it was a message that was not pleasant for you to hear. And unfortunately you heard that a friend of yours was taken to the hospital, and so on. There's always something going on. It has to be this way. It's meant to be this way. The world is constructed for it to be this way. We don't want to do anything about having to reduce stress. It's not important. What we're talking about is what I'm about to read to you, and I'll amplify a little bit, and then we'll get into some exercise, and for another exercise for anxiety, something more about a cancer healing exercise, and how to take, and a whole program for you to do to go into the cancer process in a orderly way each day, and a program that you can follow. So But this is so important, I think, that it's really significant for us to pay attention to it. This health psychologist, Dr. Kelly McGonigal, cites a study of 30,000 adults. Those who experienced a very stressful year had a higher risk of dying only if they believed that stress was detrimental to their health. This is such a breakthrough because this is what occurred to me as I was taught by and took my apprenticeship with my teacher of blessed memory in Jerusalem for a 7-year period, where I learned this new work that I'm sharing with you back in 1974 to 1981. And then thereon continuing our relationship until she died in 2003. So they experienced a very stressful year, had a higher risk of dying only if they believed stress was detrimental to their health. People who experienced a lot of stress but did not view stress as harmful were no more likely to die, says Dr. McGonigal. In fact, they had the lowest risk of dying of anyone in the study. In other words, if you think stress won't kill you, it probably won't. Hence, we are not interested in the diagnosis. Diagnosis means die, to, agno, we don't know, like an agnostic. And then osis means a condition of. So diagnosis is two people who don't know something about a condition, you and the practitioner. And therefore, it is really nothing that needs to be labeled or called any one of these 68,000 plus terms. It only is a matter of decay, and there's a decaying process that is going to be reversed through this work. Yes, decaying processes, all of them can be reversed, and reverse means to be turned around. And so they can be turned from something that has been deemed for us as dire to something that is giving us a possibility to take stock of our lives, to look at our life in a different way, to look at our value system. It's a tap on the shoulder to make us sit up and take notice and look at how we're living and how we're working and and to look at from a different frame of reference and through a different lens, really. So she goes on to say, she said, interestingly, recommends reframing how you think about stress. Instead of getting stressed out that stress is hurting you, think of the stress response as a way your body becomes stronger. I call it the distress response. We're not interested in the stress response in that sense. We're not interested about you're looking at how to cut down stress. We're looking at how you respond to stress. And it's going to be one of two functional ways. Either you're going to look at it as this, well, let me read a little further, and I think that'll make it clearer. So you think of stress as hurting you, think of stress response as a way your body becomes stronger, getting you ready to face adversity. When Harvard researchers asked people to do this, their bodies responded much more like they do when experiencing courage or joy rather than stress, eliminating some of the negative cardiovascular changes typically associated with what they call stress, but we're calling it distress. Look, you're going to respond to a stressor either with a habitual way that we've been conditioned and miseducated to do and erratically conditioned to do, to treat it as something that's an enemy or a danger. And we're asking you, no, look at it as something that's come to us as a possibility for changing our lives, that it's a challenge or an adversity that's happened to us, that we look at it from a different frame of reference so that we are welcoming the situation that happens to us, because nobody is free of any stressors, and stressors that manifest themselves, such as this condition that you're facing. Everybody is going to go through this. Everybody. Nobody is free of this, of these stressors. It is it's a universal phenomenon in our daily life. So you're going to face it, but you're going to face it with a different frame. Oh, I see. There's something that's then tapping me, telling me I'm out of balance. I'm not in a state of equilibrium. I'm not in a state of balance. I'm not in a state of sobriety. I'm out of balance. I have disequilibrium. I'm imbalanced. I have to come back to balance. And we're going to use it then as a way of saying, my belief here is it's not hurting me. Not in the future tense, not that it will not hurt me, that it's not hurting me. My life is not taken from me by this circumstance, by this condition. It's not taken. I'm here to face it and to change my attitude toward it, so that it is then becomes a more of, if you will, a friend that has come to give me a message and is sending me a message about what I need to look at in my life. And and then what we can learn from this is that the various parts of the body where in this case, the neoplasm, the cancer arises, tells us something about our emotional life, tells us something about our mental life, about our social life, and also about, as we might come to see, our moral life. But it's certainly sending us a message. The body is speaking in its own language. So, a young lady came to me with hepatitis C, and she was being treated for it. Liver tests were done, liver biopsy was done. They found that there was immense changes, pathological, they call it, pathological changes in the liver, and that the biopsy showed deterioration of the liver. And they told her that that nobody with this condition, as she had it, would live. Isn't that nice to be told that you would not live? You see what I mean by a stressor? That you were told something that you hadn't asked for, and it was mentioned to you to just in passing, or just to give you information. It's really disinformation. It didn't help you, didn't help her. In a funny way, it did help her, because she was so frightened and so out of sorts that it pushed her, rather than to cave in, which many people do when they're told such nonsensical things like this. Rather than caving in and ceding and disempowering yourself and handing it over to a supposed authority who knows more about you than you know about yourself, she then took it upon herself to search out and find other things as possibilities. And that's how she found me. And when she came to me, she was told that she would not have many months to live, and that there was no possibility for reversing this condition. We started to work. She did imagery work on cleaning the liver. She asked God. She wrote a prayer to God, and pay attention, because prayer has it's a very powerful part of this healing work, has a great impact on reversing a condition. Imagery is a prayer given form. It's a way that we speak with God, with the universal one mind, with the invisible reality. And so she put a prayer asking God to give her what she could do to heal this condition. That's how we started the work. She put it under her pillow each night, and she was to put it under her pillow each night. And then if she had a dream or some message that came to her in some way or another, to act on it, because it was coming from a inner reality, from another source, from the source of an invisible reality. Well, she had a dream that she was that she was drinking carrot juice. So she followed the information that the dream had given her, because the dream is your book of life, and it's telling you information about how to take charge of your life and steps to take in your life, in your everyday life. And she started drinking carrot juice, and she would drink carrot juice imaginally during the day. At the same time, she was also cleaning her liver, the top lobe and the bottom lobe, the two lobes. She was cleaning them regularly, to clean it of all the spots that you could see reflected in the mirror is perfectly clear. And as she was participating more and more in the imagery work, she found, for a person who is not of this tradition that I'm about to say, she found what came to her were two Hebrew letters, Aleph and Lamed. This is one of the names of God in the Hebrew tradition. And she took the letters Aleph and Lamed, and put them into her liver. And at the same time, she saw a rain coming from above that cleansed her whole body from top to bottom. After a couple of months of working this way with me, she went back, I would say about 2 or 3 months, she went back for testing. And what they found, and of course, 2 things, maybe 3 things came out of this. One was all the liver tests came back to normal. The biopsy showed no deterioration and no pathological activity going on in the liver. They couldn't understand this. And I think, if I recollect clearly, I think they wrote her up as from their point of view, an anomaly, that somebody with hepatitis C who was given up for lost came back to life and was living as a healthy, functioning human being to this day. And it's about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and is functioning in a healthy way with a family and work and doing her own work and raising a family and so on, and still drinking carrot juice and so on, but she's healed. And one of the interesting things which has happened to me during the course of my clinical work over 43 years, no doctor has ever called me when somebody has come to them with a condition that has been, quote, diagnosed, and they have concrete, what they say, evidence to show that there's something amiss, like the findings they found in the liver. Not one doctor has ever called to find out, how does this work? Tell me, how do we do that? What can we do to use that for ourselves? So usually I ask you, please, as a sidebar, if you and when you heal from any condition doing this work, please tell the doctor what you've done. You don't want to mislead them to make it think it's something they've done, possibly, that has led to this outcome. The conditions were great in this situation because nothing could be done. There's nothing they could give her, so they couldn't count on anything else. I've had this happen a number of times, many times. There was nothing else to be done, and so consequently they could pin it on nothing but this. There was no other way, although they might call it spontaneous remission, or we made a misdiagnosis. Usually they do that because they don't understand it's not in the mind. But it would be of great help to let them know how you came to this, how this happened. So what we're getting to now is, what do we do about utilizing this invisible force of imagination, of the mind, which is the channel of communication from invisible reality to visible reality. This is a unique definition which we don't find in any dictionary. It's the way that we understand how the absolute one mind, sometimes called God, the divine reality, the omnipresent oneness, whatever you want to call, how that invisible force in our lives, that invisible spirit, that we exist as in connection with all the time, although we haven't been taught how to do that so readily, sends its messages to us by this inner information superhighway called the mind. So the one mind sends it by the mind, by mind. So it's sent as the divine language from the invisible world to the visible world in the form of this 3-dimensional representation called an image. The image holds the information about us. It's a hologram. It's a message center, a message of wholeness that's sent to us, that then has the effect of producing some changes in our physical, biological status, no matter what the condition is. So we're looking at using this process mentally to then have an effect on us physically, and then as we may come to see in our lives emotionally, mentally, socially, and changing our value system around to what we call a more spiritually based life. This is how things can happen by using a process that we can't quantify, we can't calculate, we can't measure. Only peripherally, maybe it's possible, but in and of itself, it's an invisible process coming from what we call the no time zone. And we're using this way of language, this invisible language that's given three-dimensional representation in our world as a process of a no time zone where it's operating, not like this language we're talking in, which is operating in time space. It's not coming from time space. It's coming from a different sphere. And we're using it to apply to our everyday life situation. So I wanted to give you two exercises to complete our work together today. And one, as I did last time, an imagery exercise for cancer healing and an imagery exercise for anxiety. And then to tell you and share with you my program of how we can simply look at what you can do and how you can devise for yourself what the kind of direction you can take through the function of the one mind, making its presence in our world and giving us this way through the image and through our actions of will, because we're born with free will and choice, to take a step to bring health and healing to ourselves using the spark of life called will for the purposes of life. So I wanted to first give you this imagery exercise to do, and I'd like you to, it's called the Seeds of Life exercise, created by a student of years past named Fran Greenfield for cancer healing. So please, everybody, sit up straight. Put your feet flat on the floor, arms in the arms of the chair. If you don't have arms, put your hands face down on your lap. Sit up straight, as I mentioned, with your back as straight as possible. Close your eyes and begin to breathe evenly and regularly, allowing yourself to turn your senses inward to discover this inner realm of existence that is there for all of us. We're born with this possibility, and consequently, it's there and available at will, just by turning our senses inward, which is an act of will to make this discovery. So you begin to breathe in this imaginal way, the imaginal breathing, which is to quiet you and to quiet the nervous system down and so on, so that you can bring to yourself a connection to this spiritual side of our lives, to this invisible side that's there with us. It's part of our nature. We're born with the material nature, and we're born with a soul nature, an invisible nature, an infused essence of spirit, which is the heart nature of ourselves. And that heart is where the absolute one mind filters itself through to make its presence known to us. We call that presence love. So you're beginning to breathe long and slow through your mouth, so that you're becoming quiet, long and slow, parasympathetic breathing. Brief through the nose, or normal, not deeply, not exaggerated, because that will make you more revved up. That's sympathetic breathing. After breathing out and in, breathing in this regular way several times, on the next long out breath, see and sense seeds of darkness and decay eating away at the roots of life. The seeds grow from fear and doubt, born from negative beliefs and false information that we have accepted. Breathe out one time slowly. Bring these seeds out of darkness by any means you choose into the light, where they quietly wither and lose power, and lose that power to sabotage your life. Breathe out one time slowly and find within you, using any inner light that you need or any light you need to use, to find the seed of life. There's always a seed of life within you. There's a seed of life always. It's never gone. It's always present. Find the seed of life in you and plant that seed of life any way you choose in the garden of your own reality and nurture it. You are now the gardener of your life. See it grow in the light, knowing that as you do, that it has grown and is now encompassing your entire being and has pushed away all the seeds of darkness that may have been there. See the light shining through you and emanating from you, through your fingertips, surrounding your body in an aura of light that naturally, spontaneously comes to you. See, sense, and feel, and know its message that it's giving to you. And after, breathe out and open your eyes. And of course, as we did last week, as I mentioned earlier, to share with me whatever your experiences have been. I'd be glad to receive them. And if I'm able to comment on them, to see how everything is going. Now the exercise for anxiety, because it encompasses so many of the other feelings as well that you're going through in terms of getting this, as Dr. McGonigal talked about, seeing the belief that you've been fed, as she was told she would not be able to live, feeling that belief, and how do you respond to it? I hope everybody is all right. If you're not all right, by the way, please let me know. I have to know, so you'll send me a message about that. So she said, as it happens, when the stressor comes, you have two ways of responding to it. It'll kill me, or I'll live. I live, or I die. That's what it boils down to. You gotta live, you gotta die. What are you gonna do? So they said in the study, 30,000 people, the ones who say I live, live. And that's the basis of my work, which is of course, and obviously a much deeper and exploratory work. But that's a seed that we are planting in ourselves. We live. And we're going to talk in the future in these webinars coming up about how you push away anybody or anything that comes along that's going to interfere with that. And you're going to stop it. You're going to learn how to stop all that. Here's the exercise for anxiety. Close your eyes and sit up straight, feet up flat on the floor, arms to the arms of the chair, knowing that anxiety has its own rhythm. So when the anxiety, should it return, you do this exercise to take care of it. I gave you one last week to handle it from within, so to speak, by the hands that strangle. Now I'm giving you one that is helpful to shelter you from any of the other presences that may come at you, even when you meet people, as we learn, who with seemingly, quote, good intentions, give you some kind of input that is not helpful to you. So close your eyes. As I said, your arms are the arms of the chair, sit up straight, and you begin to breathe evenly and regularly, long, slow through the mouth, breathe through the nose. And you're forming this even and regular cycle of breathing. You just need a few of them. You'll find that even your emotional states will begin to calm down very quickly from this. On the next long out breath, see yourself spontaneously anywhere that you find yourself that's pleasant for you, that you found in your life to be a place that you have loved to be or really like to be, spontaneously. And when you're there, see yourself opening, breathe out one time, and open your blue sky umbrella and hold it up over your head knowing that it is blocking any detrimental influences that are coming at you from anywhere, and that you are receiving the sky blue color that you're taking in as the pure oxygen that's giving you health and well-being as you take it all in. And as you do so, you can see yourself breathing out gray smoke, to be breathing out toxic poisons of anxiety and this chronic stress hormone of norepinephrine. And then after, note how you feel, and then breathe out and open your eyes. You'll notice that we do the exercises in more of a short-term way, not a long-term way, because the exercises are a movement of power, and the power comes as a force of the instant, small and very condensed, and hits you like that, and it stimulates the healing processes in your body to move into action and to come to your aid. Now, in putting it together, I think what we can look at as a way to how you could approach your condition on a daily basis, three things occurred to me. I think as a way to put it in a package that you can use. The first, of course, is cleansing. We talked about the darkness, and you have to clean out yourself. And then, we talked about the cleansing response. So the first exercise for cleansing, and you can do it with your eyes closed now, just breathe out one time slowly, in the usual way I'm now conveying to you the meaning of doing the imagery. And you see yourself going to your place where you get water. It could be to your bottled water, to your sink, which has a filter, anywhere where you receive water that is healthy. Bottled water, filtered water, whatever it is. Turn on the faucet. If it's bottled water, hear it pouring out of the bottle. And it pours into a glass. And you take this glass and you drink it very slowly. And you sense it going down through your throat and down through your body, slowly down through the esophagus, down into the intestinal system, and then spreading from there all the way through the entire body, cleansing you thoroughly, and making you, and see the water as being transparent. And it's cleansing you, and after you're feeling cleansed, take that water, if it's the tap water from the sink, or anywhere where you're getting it, take that water in your cupped hands and wash your face with it. And know that you are cleansing and washing yourself out from any of the residues of any dirt that may be in your system, that you're purifying yourself. Cleanse yourself with this water. That's the first. The second is use the anxiety exercise to start your work in doing the imagery for the healing. Cleanse, anxiety exercise, decaying then do the exercise for cleaning out the decay. You can use a golden dust buster if you want to make it very concrete, to suck out all the cancer. The man who worked with me, who cured himself, who healed actually from cancer of the prostate, used a backhoe to clean out the cancer. And so you can use any means possible to remove it. I have a person who put his hands, went inside of his body, shrunk himself down, used the miner's light, went inside through the pores of his skin, there were openings, went to the place and took his hands and ripped it out of his body and threw it away. Do what you like. The imagination is free, and nothing, there are no rules. It's ceaseless, it's limitless, it's endless. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next week as we go through our... Oh yes, I understand. We have a Q&A, for this section. And please remember to send the questions in right now, and we'll spend some time in looking to answer them. Thank you very much. I love you. Now, the questions will be fielded by my wife, Rachel, and because she's sitting quite close to the screen. and she'll be able to see the questions that come through, and I'll be glad to field them, and we'll spend the next half hour dealing with them. Now, somebody asked a question early on today about the counterpart. Wasn't there a counterpart question? I got a counterpart question. Is there a counterpart to
get rid of unwanted character traits?
To get rid of unwarranted character traits. So I'm going to share this process with you in depth next week, and to give you the means of doing that. The means, the meaningfulness, what's meant, what we mean, and the meaning. Cancer, as a meaning, means that we're out of balance. We've gone through a decaying process. We're going to reverse it. We reverse it. That's what you're learning to do. And so anything can be reversed. So,
okay, next.
Wait, there's a counterpart. The characteristic. Easy. If you're using the imaginal process and you're talking about a character trait, I don't know what you have in mind specifically, like harshness, that you find yourself harsh. It just comes out of you like that as stimulus. You get a response. So I asking you, because we're now going into using this as a way of everyday behavioral activity for yourself mentally, because your mental life has such a profound effect on the biology and the physiology. It was the ancient system of healthcare, the mental and the physical, what's called the mind and body were one. It's a unitary system. We're bringing this back as a unitary system. So we're using the mental life in the function of imagery to bring unity to yourself. So I ask you to see harshness as an image. You can't tell me any term that you want to use. You can't use a language without it. That's the outer language. We're talking the exoteric language, the outer language, without there being a counterpart inner language. And the image is the natural and true inner language of the mind. It's the natural and true inner language of ourselves. So if there's an outer language you're talking in, there has to be a corresponding inner language. So you see the image for it. Don't give me other words for it. Give me the image. What image spontaneously occurs to you as seeing harsh? And then you would then ask yourself, well, if harsh is what I'm characteristically responding as, you couldn't do that unless you knew its opposite. You can't tell me anything about your life and what you're going through if you don't understand its opposite. You can't tell me it's daytime out if you don't understand night. You can't say that person's tall if you don't understand short. It's impossible. Language is structured to be this dual way. It's automatic. So if you're telling me you're harsh, you must then understand its counterpart. And when you see the counterpart, you ask yourself, okay, what is now the image of whatever you term? Let's say, I'll do harsh being gentle. So now you tell me gentle. See the image of gentle. Oh, I see a lamb. Now, anytime that you find yourself aware of this trait coming up, this characteristic that you're making, that you're giving forth, as soon as you're aware of it, you see, that's a friend. It's coming to remind me, just like cancer has come to remind me. It's a friend reminding me. Harsh. Oh, okay. And for that moment, you just turn it around and you see gentle. You say to yourself gentle, and you see the lamb. And you say to yourself gentle. You see we're growing a new seed in the field of consciousness. And when those seeds grow, those flowers grow, they're not cancer anymore. They're chrysanthemums. They're camellias. They're carnations. They're sunflowers. They're peonies. They're not pathology, you see. So we're seeing the new growths coming, and they push out the old, because the two can't occupy the same inner space at the same time. Thanks for the question.
Is it better to go with imagery given to you from an outside source, such as a book, or create my own from my own inner guidance?
My take on it, and what I think I've discovered over these 43 years, is that, look, I published over 3,000 imagery exercises. I've published more than anybody on earth. There's a trove of stuff to gather for yourself. What comes out of you spontaneously is much better because it's coming from you organically. So it's coming from your inner or higher source of wisdom. That's what's feeding you. So when it comes to you spontaneously, it's much better than anything that you're going to get from the outside. These imagery exercises that I've written about they're kind of spurs for you. They're prodding you. They're giving you a jump start to get used to the process. But as you get used to the process, you're going to find more spontaneous things are going to come out of you because this is a creative source that is part of your being in life. So coming from you is going to be from you, not from from somebody else who has given it to you. This is much more in alignment with your own way of being in the world. Much better if it comes that way. Doesn't mean that what I'm giving you doesn't work, because you use them, and I've had this experience of all these past 4+ decades of people having reversing's in their life and turning their life around and so on. But so many times people have come to me and said that this has come up spontaneously, and boy, do I love when that happens, because they have found something deep within themselves. They're becoming their own authorities. And a purpose of this work, of all this work, and all this work of healing we're talking about, is to become one purpose amongst a number, is to become your own authority, to become a law unto yourself.
Next question. Is there an imagery exercise for eradicating Helicobacter pylori? I was treated with 2 different combinations of antibiotics, but the H. pylori test is still positive.
Okay, so I'll give you one example of what to do with it. The 4 major areas where germs grow in the body, bacteria and the other schmutz. That's a technical term for the bacteria and the viruses. So where they all grow are 4 locations: the sinuses, the stomach, large intestine, and at the lower end of the spinal column. That's where they all grow. The lower end of the spinal column is where the how should we call them? The sexually transmitted ones grow. Like gonorrhea and chlamydia and herpes, all those, they tend to lodge in the lower end of the spinal column, and the H. pylori is in the stomach. So you want to clean out. So what are we talking about? Clean it out. Do whatever is necessary. Bring to yourself whatever you need, because it's imagination and anything can happen. There are no rules that apply here in the time-space world that apply to the imaginal function. Do whatever you want. One way that comes to me right away is to imagine yourself swallowing a rainbow, and it's moving down in a spiralic way down through the pharynx into the esophagus, down through the esophagus into the stomach, and then one color of the rainbow comes out very intensively, and it gobbles up or destroys the bacteria. And then you see the rainbow going through the stomach into the small intestine, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, into the large intestine, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, rectum, anus, comes out through the anal opening. It's black or gray strands. It gets very deep in the earth. And do this, 3 times a day. In the morning when you wake up, in the later afternoon before bed. I would even think now that I talk about it 4th time at noontime. So you do it 4 times a day. Or you could use a hose and wash it out. Anything you need to bring to clean. Mr. Clean, anything you want to bring, take care of it. Like that. And find the rhythm of doing it in the same way you're dosing it. Short, It just takes some seconds, that's it. And you're doing it in regular frequency and X number of times a day and so on for up to 21 days. And then you can go and see you'll know how you feel. You'll sense it in yourself. That's nice. And then you'll feel a difference in yourself. You'll start to feel better. There might be symptomatology of some sort will go. And then, of course, you can do a test to see if there's any observable quantitative experience that if you need it to confirm it for you, if you need. Okay.
Next question. I did my imagery every morning, first thing, for many, many years, and then I got out of the habit. And I find it difficult to get back in the habit and do the exercises because I'm addicted to my routines, like reaching for morning tea first thing, etc. I feel like I'm stuck in a cycle of addiction to busyness. Do you have any suggestions?
Yes. You get up in the morning, and the first thing you say to yourself when you open your eyes is choose life. That's the first thing you say to yourself. Imagery in the morning is to be done before the daily routine. The first thing that most people do when they get up in the morning, if they need to, is to go and urinate. So do the imagery after you go and urinate. That's step one. Step two, rather. Step one, you're saying good morning to yourself, choose life. And then if you need to urinate, go urinate, come back and do the imagery. But if you don't need to urinate, do the imagery right away. And the the understanding about doing this imagery, it only takes a few seconds. So it's not going to interfere as you start out. It will not interfere with your busyness cycle. This will give you, in fact, when you do the exercise, will give you a different attitude toward the busyness cycle. You'll come into life, into the everyday life, with a new attitude or a new perception, some new way of looking at the world. You'll be presenting yourself in a new way. All of this is just a few seconds or some seconds, however you like to say it, number of seconds, many seconds, that's it. And but you give yourself that push of will by saying choose life, because you're giving yourself a thrust.
Next question. Do you think it's important to nominate or state the intention before the start of the exercise?
Yes. It's a nice thing to give yourself an intention means an aim, not a goal, not an outcome. All of that's driven by doubt. Remember in the exercise of Frank Greenfield, we talked about pushing away fear and doubt. Doubt is always driving us to the future, which doesn't exist, to an outcome, to a result, to a goal, which is always going to be a interference in doing our process of healing. Our interest is in the process, not the product. The product is not in our hands. Not in our hands. It doesn't belong to us. We're not put on this earth to run the future, be in charge of the future, to know the future, and so forth. It's not for us to be the wizards of the future. You want to be the wizard of the present. And so you give yourself the aim. So I'm doing the Seeds of Life exercise, for example. I'm doing the Seeds of Life exercise to heal cancer. I retracted a moment. I'm doing the Seeds of Life exercise for healing cancer. And it's taking me a number of seconds or some seconds, however you feel comfortable. You don't need a clock or anything. You're in the clock will tell you when to breathe out and open your eyes. Always breathe out and open your eyes at the end, so you come back into the everyday life in the way that you entered into the exercise. Come out of it. You came in from everyday life, you come back into everyday life in the same way. In the same way. So but you're giving yourself an aim. You see, when the Zen archer in book Zen and the Art of Archery talks about the Zen archer, and he sets himself up in this elaborate ceremony to shoot his arrow at a target, at a bullseye. When he finally gets to shooting the arrow, putting the arrow in the bow, when he shoots it, he closes his eyes because he's not interested in the outcome. That's not the destiny that he's in charge of. It's not his destiny, not our destiny, to be in charge of what the end point is. Doubt is the erroneous conditioning and miseducation to make us believe that we can have some control and charge over the future and run the future. It's another way, unfortunately, of saying to usurp the knowledge and power of invisible reality, or usurp the knowledge and power of God, which is a absolute fundamental error of life.
Next question. Is the system that you presented today the same for all other diseases like multiple sclerosis?
Absolutely. I'm giving you the general understanding of all chronic ailments, because the 68,000 names are all one. I don't care how you want to frame it, because when you talk to me about multiple sclerosis or cancer, it doesn't make a difference to me. But looking at decay and how to deal with decay. So, okay, so we know a little bit about the physiology, because after all, you're telling me I have a nervous system difficulty. Okay, so you'll do imagery for the nervous system to repair the nervous system. There's a DVD out called The Healing Field, which was just produced, and it's on PBS through January of 2019. I'm in that DVD along with some other people, and the person that's presented in the DVD is a man who's going to have his leg amputated due to a death due to his nerve dying and his muscles dying in his leg. And they set him up for an amputation. They put him on the operation scale docket, and he refused the operation. A week later, he walked out of the hospital under his own steam, and so he healed from that. And the electromyographical study that they used on his leg showed that his nerve regenerated and his muscles regenerated. So everything's reversible. And if you're dealing with cancer, you're going to aim the cancer in a different fashion. So you're going to clean out the decay there. You got to repair the decay of the nervous system in the way that we have for looking at the nervous system. So all you're doing is telling me which systems we're looking at and what to do about those systems. The woman with the Hep C, we looked at the liver. You're telling me about, let's say, a cancer of the leg. You're talking about a derangement there. Okay, so we're going to zip it out. And then next time we're going to look at what is the relationship of where it takes place in the body to what it means for us emotionally and socially and mentally and so on. And so the leg, it's not by chance, no chance. Nothing happens by chance in the spiritual life. It's always there to show us something that we need to learn from. Happened in the leg, it's not by chance. It's not that it didn't happen in the arm, it didn't happen in my back, it didn't happen in my face, it happened in the leg. What is the leg? And we're going to learn about that. What happened with her in the liver? How come the liver? It didn't happen in the lungs, it didn't happen in the stomach, it didn't happen in the pancreas, it happened in the liver. We're going to find out what the relationships are. Then now we're broadening our scope of investigation to look more deeply now. That's what we do next time.
Next question. Can you speak about why the meaning of several of 21-day cycles and the 7 days off, why do you need the 7 days off before doing another 21-day cycle?
The research has shown, it was done at the University of Texas at Austin years ago, that it takes up to 21 days to change a habit. So what we're doing is we're going to the mental gym and we're building mental reps and lats and pecs. And to build up these mental muscles, it takes, and this imaginal framework, it takes reps. It needs to be repetitions. Like you go to the physical gym, you rep. And so we need to rep. And this building of a new seed, of new flowers, of camellias, of carnations, of chrysanthemums, of sunflowers, and so on, and peonies, etc., all these flowers that we're using as the terminology instead of cancer and pathology and sarcoma and all that. We're doing that so that we build up a generation of a new garden in ourselves, a new garden of health. And it takes up to 21 days for that to happen. Why do we spend the 7 days off? Because it goes along with the biological cycles that are in men and women, particularly women, manifested very blatantly, which is periodicity. 21 days on, 7 days off. That's the regular cycle. So you need 7 days to assimilate what you've been doing. So you give it a rest so you don't become a nerd to it, you don't become habituated to it, it doesn't become boring, and so on. And you give it a chance to plant itself in your system as a new seed, as a new biomental possibility, which you are allowing it to grow. You wouldn't overwater a garden, you wouldn't over manure a garden, you wouldn't do things that you would do to excess in a garden, because that would stunt the growth of whatever you're trying to grow. So you're being a gardener and you're doing it in a balanced way. So we do it by the periodicity of the human body, of the human organism. And men go through their own cycles too, similar to that. Their own biorhythms are somewhat similar to women's, but don't manifest, of course, as it does with a woman, with the period and so on, and premenstrual stuff, etc.
Next question. How did your teacher Colette spend her Sabbath day? What did she recommend to her students to do? Meditate, pray, etc. on this day?
The Sabbath is a day of reversing. So the Sabbath is a day in which you reverse the habits of your 6 days of your daily life. And doing that, you're bringing to bear, looking at not taking on the habitual life. She didn't take on the habitual life. She would never see anybody on Saturday. She would read for herself. She would read holy books. There would be visitors, and they would talk about spiritual matters and matters of holiness. That's you organize a day that's different from, and reversing the rest of the 6 days. In my new work that I'm taking up more deeply this process, because what it turns out in my work is that you're bringing the Sabbath possibility into your daily life experience, because you're reversing your daily life experiences day by day by day. The condition that you are suffering from has been the turning point to turn you on a path to reverse your life. That's why it's a friend. The adversity is and challenge has come to our lives as a gift to allow us to turn our lives around. So we can either take that belief that Dr. McGonigal talked about, the stressor comes, the stress comes, and the distress response is, I'm going to die. And the other response is, this gives me a chance to look at, I can, maybe I should look at my value system. Maybe I should take a turn and see who's really my friend, who is there for me, and is there a loss in my life that I can repair? What has happened? What can I do to change my life? See, so we can use it either way. It reminds me of the joke that, and I know it may be sexist. I don't know. I just found it funny, and it had to do with Mr. Schwartz dies and he goes to heaven, and his friend Mr. Goldstein is there, and he's seeing this old man is sitting there, and he's sitting in heaven, and there's a beautiful woman sitting on his lap, and Mr. Schwartz says, Mr. Goldstein, this is your reward, isn't it, for your life? He says, no, it's our punishment. Okay, so you can look at it in two different ways. That's the point. The stressor comes, and you can respond with equanimity, equilibrium, or you can respond with distress. No blame. We're telling you how to reverse the distress, how distress can be turned around to be a benefit in your life. In every curse, in the center of the curse that you see it as, there's a pearl, there's a blessing. And we're gonna delve into the blessing.
Next question. Can you use imagery exercises to change another person's attitude to these exercises so they do not reject them without even trying them out?
You're trying to ask a person, look, I'm doing imagery, and I thought it might be interesting for you. Won't you try that? Is that what you're asking? Is that what they're looking at?
I think they're asking, can they do the imagery to help shift a person's attitude into a more open attitude towards
yes,
doing imagery?
You can, but there's a moral caveat. You can't do for a person what the person hasn't given you permission to do. When we do healing at a distance, where a group gets together and does imagery for a person who is suffering, we did it for a little boy. We did it for a little boy in Jerusalem who was a young boy, and his mother was sitting with him in a doctor's office in Brooklyn. She agreed that we could do this at a distance for him. He's not 7 years old or older, so he's not able to give permission. But after 7, everybody is competent, is legally able to give permission. But whatever you do with regard to whatever you're going to impose, if you will, toward another person, has to be done with their permission. A man had leukemia in the Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York. Family came to me and said, we want to do something about him. We want to do something so he'll live. I gave them an imagery exercise to do, which is in the Healing Visualizations book. They went to his bedside and they all stood around his bed and they asked him, would you like to do this imagery with us? He said, no, but I'll allow you to do it for me. Some people say, no, I don't want you to do anything for me, but you have to get the permission of the other to, in some way or another, that you're going to be working to do something for that person, to see if it works.
Does the 21-day cycle go from evening to evening or AM to AM?
Does the 21-day cycle starts in the morning when you wake up, ends when you go to sleep? Starts morning, ends evening, before bed.
And does the Sabbath have a focus on family and friends too?
Of course, because the way of the Western tradition is purely based in social relationships in your everyday life. It's the way of using the everyday life to bring health, happiness, wholeness, humor, and haleness, wholesomeness, healing, and holiness into your life. All those elements, all those H's, except for wholeness, which is a WH, into your life, to reverse your life situation to one of the purposes of it all. And what the Sabbath brings as part of this practice is to become free. It's one of the purposes of being on earth, is to become free, to extract ourselves from the misery and suffering that besets us, which has been said by Buddha in a very short, succinct way for all the traditions, that the lot of human existence is what's given to us as a, if you will, as a birthright, in quotes, is suffering. And we're going to set about extracting ourselves out of the suffering. It's another purpose, to remove ourselves from the suffering and become free, independent, self-empowered, a law unto ourselves, and so forth, a holy being.
So there's one question that came through chat, which was basically, do you see cancer as a self-sabotage?
Because the exercise said about self-sabotaging. It's not that the cancer, you see, this is sort of like a tick of science, of natural science. They talk about brain function, and the brain does this, and the brain does that, and the brain does this, and the brain is seen as an autonomous organ that does this, that, and the other thing. So they're reifying the brain, making it a living thing that's separate from a human being, because it's a human being that does things. The brain is a function of the human existence. It's what the human being does through will and imagination and so on, that then brings the brain as the external, as I say, the external issue into play. The brain gets the messages, and then it delivers the messages to the other brains of the body, the other brains of the other organs, to come into play. Okay, so and now the question is a cancer self-sabotage?
Oh, yeah. So the cancer also destroys itself, is how I understood the question.
Yeah, so the cancer is, we're talking about cancering. We're talking about a system of our own living experience in life that brings an end that brings that's a cancering life, a life out of balance. Everything has to do with an excess of being it's a life out of balance. What the 68,000 names are is what the medical establishment, at the end point of it all, has decided to name that decay that they see, that imbalance. They decide to give it a name so that they can have authority and establish a tradition of care based on their model, which is a dominant model. So what we're saying is, what do we do through the course of our living experience to sabotage our lives? And what do we do about those saboteurs that have entered into our system that are here to sabotage our lives, which we call the inner terrorists or the false selves or the inner parasites? What do we do about them? And that's the further extension of how we treat the cancering condition that we explore. Thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure, of course, as usual. I love being with this group, and thank you for all the questions. And I hope that you have a glorious week. And I look forward to have a happy July 4th. And I look to seeing you in a week from today. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Love.